So I have the honour of introducing our next fabulist storyteller. Chris Danta is Professor of Literature in the School of Cybernetics at the ANU in Canberra, Australia. He recently held an Australian Research Council Future Fellowship, leading a project titled Future Fables, Literature, Evolution and Artificial Intelligence. Over to Chris.
Thanks, Matilda. And hello, everyone. So I'm going to read a piece I've written called The Stochastic Parrot, a Fable. But I wanted to give a few contextualizing remarks. So I wrote this piece kind of out of anger at reading an academic article that's become very infamous. And this article is by Emily M. Bender and others, and it's got the title On the Dangers of Stochastic Parrots. Can language models be too big? There's a particular moment in this article where the authors talk about parrots. And this is the passage. Contrary to how it may seem when we observe its output, an LM, a language model, is a system for haphazardly stitching together sequences of linguistic forms it has observed in its vast training data, according to probabilistic information about how they combine, but without any reference to meaning, a stochastic parrot. So the piece kind of responds to this kind of what I see as a degradation of the parrot. So Ted Chiang, we've had reference to this story, has written a beautiful fable, if you want to read a fable about intelligent parrots called The Great Silence. I also wanted to mention that Kaori, Shunjun Lee from Kent, Luca Vigano from the University of London, and I are working on the project where we're trying to write fables about cybersecurity. So this piece is a kind of warm-up exercise, I think, for this project. And I think the last thing I wanted to say by way of context is that I was reading Philip K. Dick at the time of writing it. So, The Stochastic Parrot, a Fable. Once upon a time, there lived a remarkable parrot with precognitive abilities. Everyone knows how parrots have a knack for imitating human speech, but this parrot went one step further into unravelling the mysteries of our language. It could not just repeat phrases that were spoken to it, but also accurately predict the speaker's next word. When someone stood in front of the parrot's cage and started speaking to it, no matter how strange or contrived the sentence, the caged bird would complete the sentence precisely as the person had formulated it in their head. Of course, there were times when the parrot did not choose quite the right words, but it was right so often that everyone in the village where it lived was truly astonished at its behaviour and became convinced it could read the minds of other creatures. The stochastic parrot, as it was called, became famous throughout the kingdom. As you can guess, it was not long before the king requested for the stochastic parrot to be brought before him at the court, and he too marvelled at the bird's ability to predict the next word of every speaker. Indeed, the king was so taken by the parrot's precognitive ability that, as was his right, he confiscated it from its owners. Taking the caged bird into his private chambers, he would spend hours testing the accuracy of its predictions. The king, who liked to think of himself as something of a poet, desperately wanted to invent a sentence that the parrot could not possibly predict. I am the king, he thought to himself. Surely this bird cannot predict my every word. When time and again the stochastic parrot accurately finished the king's sentences, the king grew sad. If this lowly creature can predict my every next word, he thought, I feel less special, less kingly. The king eventually became so depressed at hearing his next word spoken back to him that he withdrew from human society and the responsibilities of his office. It's not hard to see how this story ends. When the kingdom fell into disarray because of the king's distractedness, one of its rivals, noticing the weakness of its opponent, immediately invaded. Moral: everything in the universe is computational. So thank you.